to be one of the few people in the cinema world who didn't enjoy Dune Part 1. Not because there wasn't the makings of a great film in there, but because despite some interesting world building, writer-director Denis Villeneuve was unable to create a compelling emotional core. The entire movie felt like setup and world building without enough interesting character work to help us understand why we should care. And while I kept on hearing, yeah, but you don't get it, Part 2 is going to be different, the first one was just an appetizer, this is what they've been building toward, I just didn't buy into it. How much better could this movie be if it were following up such a narratively and emotionally underdeveloped movie? How strong could your movie be if you're building it on a foundation of characters that are just as alien as the world around them? I mean, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is following up a terrible Suicide Squad movie, but that's pretty much a soft reboot. How good could this movie be, really? Incredibly damn good, apparently. Because Dune Part 2 isn't just a phenomenal sequel that showcases one of the greatest leaps in quality between a movie and its predecessor, it feels like a movie crafted and hand-delivered by the cinematic gods, with the sole purpose of its existence being to remind you just what the big screen was made for. This movie is so good, you'll find yourself walking out of the cinema complaining about superhero movies like your modern Scorsese. We hear the term this movie was made for the big screen thrown around quite a lot, and at times it's easy to feel like it's a marketing gimmick. Like, yes, Doug Liman, your MMA action movie where Conor McGregor strolls into a room and yells, "How you doing, fellas?" would probably play better in theaters, but I don't need an IMAX screen for Jake Gyllenhaal and his abs, even if he did get into the best shape of his life. But Dune Part 2 is, in the truest words possible, made for the big screen, and even that feels like an understatement. Not only because of the immersive sound design, Hans Zimmer's epic riveting score, and the improved color grading which lends itself to much richer colors, but because director Denis Villeneuve and cinematographer Greg Fraser, who I'm proud to remind you is Australian, craft some of the finest sequences cinema is capable of creating. I wasn't around to watch Lord of the Rings and the original Star Wars in theaters, but I like to imagine that what I felt watching Paul ride the sandworm in this movie is pretty similar to how people felt watching those films. Despite not using a first-person perspective, he manages to make you feel like you yourself are Paul Atreides on that sandworm, with some of the most technically impressive visuals you could ask for. Like, I can't remember the last time I watched a movie and just kept on asking myself, how the hell did they do this? The large-scale battles are epic in every sense of the word, yet the standout action sequence for me is the knife combat between Paul and Fade, which we glimpsed a little bit of in the trailers. There was a lot of talk about Austin Butler's extensive knife training with the movie drawing influence from Filipino martial arts, and the result is absolutely glorious. It is fast without being disorienting and tense while feeling absolutely effortless. This is the level of hand-to-hand combat I would expect in a movie like John Wick. Here's the thing though, the visuals were always the strongest part of Dune, so how does the rest of the film stack up? Does the movie rise to the emotional heights that the epic proportions of the action and the visuals deserve? Absolutely. And that's in large part thanks to a terrific cast, who beyond being an impressive lineup on name recognition alone, do a fantastic job creating a fleshed out group of characters. We got brief glimpses of Zendaya's character Chani in the first Dune, but she didn't really do much outside of popping up in a vision and saying, "Paul." Here she gets to fully blossom into this character, delivering a fantastic layered performance that essentially becomes the heart of the film. Her romance with Chalamet genuinely works and takes us to emotionally unexpected places. Returning actors like Dave Bautista, Javier Bardem, and Rebecca Ferguson are all fantastic and truly come into their own as their respective characters. Yet no one blew me away like Timothée Chalamet. I've been a fan of Chalamet since Call Me By Your Name, which is when most people became a fan, but this is the first time I've thought to myself, damn, that is the Timothée Chalamet, everyone. As far as new cast members go, I really wish Lea Seydoux and Florence Pugh were given far more to work with, but it's Austin Butler as Fade Rotha that breathes new life into this franchise. Denis described his portrayal as a mix of a psychotic serial killer and a Mick Jagger-esque rock star, and I can't think of a more perfect description. Actually he did compare him to a snake too. Not only is he genuinely terrifying and animalistic, not only does he nail the physicality of the character, he bears a charisma that is just as scary as it is irresistible. I found myself using the word epic to describe this movie a lot, and I don't mean that purely in a visual sense, because just like Oppenheimer was incredibly epic on a character scale, showing us how the actions of one man can have a ripple effect that changes the entire world, the narrative scale of this movie is truly epic, taking generic yet grand narrative tropes like the chosen one archetype and breathing complexity into them, which in turn only makes them feel even larger than life. Because we've seen all-out war, we've seen the prophecy in a lot of science fiction movies, but this movie is a rare science fiction movie that treats these ideas like the complex ideas that they really are, making them feel just as epic as the sandworms that the characters ride. And it was interesting after the credits rolled to find myself having moral and ethical discussions about how I felt about such characters. Even Paul, the quote-unquote hero of the film, is ripe with complexity. When it comes to attention to detail, Denis Villeneuve is up there with the very best, and nowhere has that been more apparent than in this film. Whether it's the impeccable costume design, the choice to use a different black and white color grading for the world of the Harkonnens, or the varying diverse use of lighting to create a sense of time and place, it just creates worlds that feel incredibly lived in. Ones that you yourself would wish to spend hours getting lost in, if only you didn't fear a sandworm would come out and like eat you up. While Denis often attempts to create practically, he also smartly knows when he needs to use CGI, such as when it comes to showing groups of thousands of people marching into combat. Take Christopher Nolan for example. His disdain of computer generated imagery usually produces great results like the rotating hallway in Inception, but his reluctant CGI extras into the Dunkirk evacuation made the whole event feel strangely small. He didn't manage to capture the scale of a real-life evacuation which involved 338,000 people. This is a near perfect film, and what few flaws it has, I expect arise from the nature of this film as an adaptation, and Denis' undying love of the book, which he referred to as the Bible. Quite a few stuff feel like they exist solely to set up events that occur in future books, or even worse, for seemingly no reason other than, yeah, this is in the book, so I guess it's gotta be in the movie. This is a 2-hour and 45-minute film, and at that point, I wish someone would have stepped in and said, hey, we don't really need Florence Pugh's narration just because her character narrates in the book. And maybe we don't need this cameo from a certain young actress that feels like this movie's version of an MCU style sequel setup, and not the good kind. And yes, am I implying it's not without any narrative purpose? No. But if I tell you the email scene in Batman v Superman was meant to signal a hopeful future for heroes, that doesn't make the scene much better, does it? That Batman v Superman scene is still like 10 times worse though. Overall, the movie is already doing a lot, and at times it does buckle under its own pressure. But if I'm being honest, it feels a little silly to complain about anything in a movie this good. A movie that is just firing on all cylinders. A movie that fully utilizes the power of the filmmaking medium, while also telling an incredible story that is powered by performances just as fantastic and as finely tuned as the visual effects. I'm gonna have to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. Have you gotten the chance to watch Dune Part 2? If you have, let us know what you thought about it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, please give us a like and subscribe. I'm Cinemike, and I'll see you next time.